who lives from harvest. There are people, women on the side of the road. The informal sector. Women will,
Yes.
will plant seeds, grow the crops. They'll grow tomatoes, they'll grow yam, and then they bring them to market to sell. What is the plight of the person who sows seeds in somebody else's farm or somebody else's garden? The last thing, if you sow a seed, you're sowing so you can reap the harvest. And I can't figure out how these preachers have tricked people into believing that if they sow their seeds into the preacher's farm or the preacher's garden, that they'll reap the harvest. It defies logic. It defies common sense. It goes against nature. You sow seeds in your own garden.
Hello, viewers. Welcome to another beautiful episode of the Nanaya Yabua podcast. And this year, 2025, I said we were not, going to sit on our high knees. We were going all out. And it's been a beautiful start to the year with impactful individuals. For you to be impactful, that means the person has worked on themselves, has decided to reach out and teach. And so I have with me today, I don't know whether to call you an elder because I know it's Dr. DeForest B Soaries. But I believe that you're more of the wisdom, and I listen to you, see you, feel you, hear you, and it's like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, first of all, thank you for saying yes. I need to appreciate you for saying yes, for coming onto this platform, so that whoever that have the chance to listen to our beautiful conversation this year will learn something to apply to their lives. As we all know, change is the one constant that we can bet on in this life. So when we decide not to make the best of available sources and resources for positive change in our lives, then, my people, you will be left behind. And if you don't want to be left behind, as I can say, "Tikro inkwejina, one head does not hold counsel." So today, me and my senior, my elder brother, Dr. DeForest, will be having a council, and you are going to enjoy from this council.
Thank me, Nana. It is I who should be thanking you. I cannot tell you how honored I am. I cannot say no to a Ghanaian. I am in Koswahini in the Atamabwakwa traditional area. The Ochahini is my dear friend and brother. In fact, he was a member of my congregation when we lived in New Jersey. And now I'm
Oh,
a member of his administration as he leads the people of the Eastern region, the Ochaman Kingdom from Chep.
Ochimai. Okay.
So
So,
I am Ochiman, and I am connected to Chepi and the stool that's led by the 35th Ochihini of the Achimapawakwa traditional area.
okay. So, och, so let me get Nkoswahini.
Yes.
Hey. So if you don't understand the meaning of Nkoswahini, Nkoswahini is a person who champions leadership, who champions foresight, who contributes to society to move it forward. Yes. So if you female, you become Nkosua Hima. If
Right.
you are male, you become Nkosua Hine. So if we put the name Dr. DeSoaries aside, we are going to call you Nana.
Okay. All right. All right.
Nana Akwaba.
Aquaba.
Good.
Kwajo Upperview is my Ghanaian name. Barima is my title. And so uh, Aquaba.
Nana Kwejo Berema Abebio.
Yes.
Whoa. President and CEO of Corporate Community Connections Inc., a company that assists corporations expand and improve their social responsibility efforts. So you retired in 2021 from the ministry of First Baptist Church of Lincoln Gardens here in New Jersey. However, your ministry, this is what I found fascinating when I was reading your bio, that Aside from the spiritual growth, you focus on educational excellence, economic empowerment, and faith based community development. And in 2005, you launched the D Free Financial Freedom Movement. And you've also appeared on CNN documentary. You were featured in the CNN documentary. You're also an author of 12 books, including Say Yes to No Debt and Say Yes When Life Says No. Oh, goodness. Listen, guys, there's a lot. If I start reading it all, we'll not get into the conversation. So I'm going to pause here and let him get into it. Let's get to Dr. DeForest. Where did you grow up? And why did you decide to get into ministry?
Well, I grew up in northern New Jersey, and the last thing I wanted to be in life was a minister. My dad was a minister, and I didn't like the way people treated him. I didn't like how hard he had to work and then have to work another job to make a living. So I love my dad, but I didn't like the idea of being a minister. So when I became old enough to go to college, I left home and I left church. I didn't go to church at all.
Mhm.
But something happened to me before I left home. On the day that Martin Luther King was killed, I stopped by my grandmother's house and I saw her sitting alone at her dining room table in tears. And what she told me was that she was in tears because someone had killed Martin Luther King that day. And I decided that day that although I didn't know much about Dr. King at that time, I was 16 years old. I decided that I wanted to learn as much about him as I could because I wanted to be as impactful on someone
Mhm.
else's life as Dr. King was on my grandmother's life. So that led me to any number of pursuits, but everything I've ever done, whether it's ministry, whether it's government, whether it's business, it's always been in pursuit of that commitment I made that day at my grandmother's table.
Wow, that is excellent. Okay, so you made this commitment. It's like you you are one of the few who found a calling and stuck to it all these years, and you're still, doing it. Now, when one of the reasons, aside from Ghana, getting in touch with you was about finances.
Hmm.
Um, as we spoke earlier, I've been here for almost 30 years. As you're saying, I'm Canadian. I'm more Canadian than Ghanaian. But so even focusing on being more Canadian than Ghanaian, there are Ghanaians, Africans all over the place in the United States here. And we all face financial challenges. So we come to meet our brothers and sisters, African Americans, and we also face similar challenges. Even though the path has been paved before we got here from history, we still face similar financial challenges. What led you into finance?
Well, I went to work for a civil rights organization, and a couple of things happened to me. First of all, I always found that to do any of our projects, we always had to go to rich people and mostly rich white people to get the money. And I just felt it was such a contradiction because in some instances, we actually went to the people that we considered our enemies to
Yes.
give us money to finance our work. So that bothered me intensely. Second thing that happened to me was that in my early 20s, I was addicted to spending money to look nice. So I drove nice cars, I had nice clothing, I ate in nice restaurants. But when my father died at 47 years old, my mother was 44 years old. If my father had not had life insurance, my mother would have been homeless because I was so busy spending money to look good. I had no savings, I had no insurance, I had no investments. And I felt like a hypocrite because I was speaking truth to power, I was protesting against injustice. I had even, by that time, accepted a call to ministry, so I was leading a congregation, pastoring a church, teaching people to tithe, and I couldn't tithe myself because I was too busy spending my money than I was saving my money. And this led me to just the realization that my life really was a lie, that I was so concerned about what other people did to me and to our community that I had not focused on what I should and could have been doing for myself. So when my grandmother died, I was 31 years old. My grandmother died and she left me a house. Now, understand, my grandmother had six children. After her sixth child, her husband had a stroke, so he couldn't work. She had no education. Her only skill was sewing people's clothes. She was a seamstress. Yet when she died, she had three houses, all of them paid for. And the first real estate I owned, I inherited from my grandmother. So I looked at my own life and said, shame on me. If I died right now, all I'd have to leave is credit card bills. And my grandmother, who had no civil rights, no husband to support her, no education, she was able to leave me the real estate that has really turned into my own personal wealth. So I decided at her grave that I had to change my life. And changing my life started by changing my mind, the way I thought about money, the way I thought about my future, the way I invested in myself, in my family, in my community. So that's what got me into finance. I tell people all the time, I learned about money by being broke. I lived I lived for 13 years from paycheck to paycheck, credit card to credit card. I had no savings, no investments, and my grandmother's death is what created my wake up call.
Wow. I think many of us here, the reason why I'm speaking to you about this finance piece is that as immigrants as well, you also have a responsibility of sending money home. But
Right.
it's not even so much as that. From my observation, and I'm not sure if you've had chances of being to say some of our parties and whatnot here, that the amount, the effort put into it,
Yes.
the financials that goes into it, the dressing and
Right.
everything.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Don't forget
yes.
the alcohol.
And
We don't drink cheap liquor. Like we like expensive liquor. We like the best of everything. But it's a
yes.
matter of priorities. And what I've learned both through scripture and through experience is this.
Hmm.
If you can't handle a little well, then
Yes.
you won't handle a lot well. We have
Hmm.
professional athletes in our country who make
Hmm.
millions of dollars a year, and then when they finish playing their sport, they're bankrupt because it
Yes.
doesn't matter how much money you have; it matters how
Hmm.
much you keep. So yes, we spend money on things that do not grow in value,
Yeah.
and the things that do grow in value, we say we
Hmm.
can't afford them. So I think it's
Hmm.
important for us as a people throughout the diaspora to
Yeah.
really consider what we are doing with what we have before we complain about what we don't have.
I, I, guys, if you're listening, this is the Nana Yayabua podcast, and I am having a beautiful conversation with Dr. Soaries. Am I getting your name correct?
Yes, perfect, perfect,
Okay,
saying it
okay.
perfect.
Yes, I am thank you. And he, like I said earlier when I was introducing him, he used to be a pastor, but his pastorship also focused on education, financials, you
Right,
making sure that you get your financial house in check as much as you getting your spiritual house in check. Clean up your financial also, mind, body, and soul, giving you a holistic um, spiritual experience. So let's talk about this book. The title is um, something that when I get the opportunity, yes, I would. It says y- say yes.
right,
So you're saying yes to no debt.
exactly. Because in Western culture,
Hmm.
debt has become a lifestyle. And
Hmm.
so we spend money that we don't
Hmm.
have. We pay
Yes,
interest rates, which erodes our own wealth
that
to,
is true.
to buy things in many instances we don't need. And what I was doing was I was paying high interest rates to buy things I really couldn't afford. And the more debt you have, then the Bible says in Proverbs 22 that the borrower is slave to the lender.
Yes.
You're from Ghana. You know about the problem in Africa. Africa was literally raped and robbed by Western powers, by Belgium, by France, by England, by the U.S., just raped and robbed. And now Western countries go back to the same countries that they stole their resources from to lend them money at high interest rates. And when the African countries cannot pay their debt back to the World Bank and others, then what happens is they come in to negotiate unreasonably low prices to continue taking assets out of Africa. So
True.
when I went to Ghana, I saw Ghanaian um, Ghanaians growing cocoa beans,
Hmm.
but then the cocoa beans would go to Switzerland and they
Yes.
would turn the cocoa beans into chocolate, and the Ghanaians had to buy the chocolate back from the Swiss for themselves in Ghana, and it's their beans.
Yes.
I went to Ghana and saw orange groves, people growing oranges, but
Hmm.
there's no processing plant to turn the oranges into juice. So the oranges would leave Ghana, go overseas, and then the Ghanaians would have to buy orange juice made from the oranges that they made. But all of this results from an economic system where the governments and their people remain in debt and in bondage, and thus people can take advantage of you when you owe them money. And so that's the global picture. On a personal level, if you say to me, I will lend you $1, but you got to give me back $1.25, I would consider that unfair if we're trying to have a just and a fair relationship. Yet the banks do that every day. Not only do the banks charge us 25 cents, 28 cents on a dollar, but there are certain places that will lend you money right away. You have to pay it back in 2 weeks, and the interest rate is 4, 5, and 600% when you look at the fees they charge. So I just think we have to take responsibility to preserve our own capital, do business with each other, make sure we know the difference between our wants and our needs.
Hmm.
A lot of things we spend money on are not needs, they're wants. And if you spend money on what you want and don't have enough money for what you need, then you have to borrow money and pay high interest rates to pay that money back. And it's a vicious cycle. Ghanaians have generally not been a credit based society.
Yeah.
Ghanaians have generally been a cash based society. South Africa is just the opposite. South Africans are just like Americans. They borrow, 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 borrow. However, I was in a car recently going from Accra up to Chebby in the
Yeah.
eastern region, and I saw a billboard right on that highway. It had a picture of a young woman, and she had a TV under one arm. She had a washing machine under another arm. She had all of these appliances, and it said, "You can have it all." And the billboard was sponsored by Visa. So credit is creeping its way into Ghana, and especially the middle and upper class. They're being given credit cards and mortgages, and it won't be very long before Ghanaians are drowning in debt the same way we are, unless you and others can get the word out.
Thank you. I think that is one of the things I keep also seeing, that definitely westernization is getting into the corners of places, but we have the knowledge, the skill, and the greater understanding of its impact.
Right.
Yes, so that is where there's a huge knowledge gap that, unfortunately, if we don't start doing filling in the gap and giving the resources and education, then all hell it breaks loose. The
Oh yeah.
center will not hold. Yeah.
And the other thing is young Ghanaians are looking at young African Americans as role models, the entertainers, especially the musicians. And so when you go to Accra and see young black Ghanaians, you can hardly tell if they're from Kumasi or New York. I mean, they're dressed like us because they're watching BET. They're watching. I was in South Africa a few weeks ago, and
Hmm.
Chris Brown was in town. Chris Brown
Hmm.
sold out a stadium that hosts 80,000 people 2 nights in a row in Johannesburg. And so these young people are looking at Chris Brown. They're looking at Beyonce. They're looking at all of these U.S. entertainers, all of whom look rich, and 3 or 4 of them are rich, but most of them are not rich, but they look rich. So the young African is looking up to the young African American, and and buying the lie. So to your point, we've got to educate them and help them understand reality, because most of the young people who are the rappers and these TV stars, if they are making money, most of the money they're making goes to other people.
Yeah. Wow. So, in other words, guys, do not buy the lie.
Don't buy the lie.
Don't buy the lie. Get the real information, get the truth, look at yourself, reflect on yourself, know what you want to do, where you want to go, and look for the information and resources that will help you make informed decision.
And it's
That
not,
is
listen, Nana, it's not just the entertainers. The preachers in Africa are looking up to the African American prosperity preachers, and they in Nigeria and in Malawi and in other countries. They're going to countries like Botswana, South Africa, and they are doing there exactly what they're doing here. That is, it tricking the people into thinking that if the people make the preacher rich, then God will make the preacher rich, the people rich. So in New York Times, the New York Times had an article a few years ago on the front page. It said the fastest way to get rich in Africa is to pick up a Bible. And they had a picture of an African preacher standing in front of a Rolls Royce surrounded by bodyguards. And what I'm telling you is that one of the greatest threats to Africa is not racism or imperialism, it's prosperity preachers who are who are ripping off poor people and using the money for themselves.
true that. True that. I am one of the few who really don't bother about all those preacher folk and stuff. And when I was connecting with you, so that is the specific reason why I connected with you, because I looked at what you were doing. You can judge a person by their actions. What is the social impact this person is having? And through that social impact, you're talking about financial empowerment, which means this preacher is not saying, give me your money, and if you don't sow a seed, you are not going to heaven. If you
Listen
don't
to this.
sow,
Nana, please listen to this. Please listen to this because you're from Ghana. Have you ever seen a person who lives from harvest? You know, there are people, women on the side of the road, you know, the informal sector. Women will,
yes,
will plant seeds, grow the crops, they'll grow tomatoes, they'll grow yam, and then they bring them to market to sell. What is the plight of the person who sows seeds in somebody else's farm or somebody else's garden? The last thing, if you sow a seed, you're
you're
sowing it
supposed to
your
be
own,
reaping.
so you can reap the harvest. And I can't figure out how these preachers have tricked people into believing that if they sow their seeds into the preacher's farm or the preacher's garden, that they'll reap the harvest. It defies logic. It defies common sense. It goes against nature. You sow seeds in your own garden, in your own farm, in your own land.
I think they have taken the notion of the way African spirituality is witchcraft and
Right.
everything, and molded it around it. That you sowing the seed is to help the pastor or the priest or the prayer warrior fight against the spiritual
I
um,
know.
stuff. But what I also have, the conversations I have people when I go to Ghana, is that the most the person doing you is you.
Right. Right.
You are doing you, not that grandmother, not that grandfather, not this. You are doing you. That is not to say that there aren't spiritual forces, but we allow them into
That's
our lives through our thoughts, our actions, our attitude, our behaviors.
right at 1,000%. And I just, it hurts me to see poor women, mostly women,
Yes.
poor women bringing their hard earned dollars and giving them to preachers. And the preachers are taking them to buy airplanes, to buy vacations, to buy clothing for their wives. And the people get poorer and poorer.
Yes, yes, that is very right. So there is a mindset transformation that needs to be done on that angle as
Right.
well,
Right.
and break all those negativity.
So we started. I mean, specifically to your question, I was at the church for 30 years. For the first 15 years, we focused on building the church, We formed other not-for-profit NGO type organizations to do foster care, housing, economic development. But I still noticed that the members of my congregation, many of whom were making decent salaries, they still weren't doing well financially. And by that I mean they were living paycheck to paycheck. They didn't really have emergency savings. They didn't have investment. So for the second half of my ministry at First Baptist, I focused on that as a priority, helping people get out of debt, helping people become homeowners, helping people learn how to invest their money. And that's where the book came from. The book came from my Bible studies around finance, all based on scripture. But the Bible says a lot of common sense things about what to do with money. Jesus said, "Who would build a building without first counting the cost?" That's basically teaching around budgeting. Who is going to start something and not be able to finish it because they didn't have the money? So CNN came along and did a documentary on our church doing that kind of work, and that's when churches all over, really all over America and in other parts of the world, started asking us to show them how to do what we were doing.
Oh, thank you for being a leader in that aspect. And I think we really need to thank your grandmother
Right.
for the lessons she taught you. And that leads me to African women. Not that all women, but African women. There's something about African women that when, let me put it generally,
Okay.
Black women,
Right.
there is something that we've been gifted with, that when Black women are supported, it changes the direction of our entire human race. However, sometimes it's this that many other people fear, that so they need to quote unquote suppress us so that we don't become into our fall. Because I know the energy and the power we have. And okay, thanks to Grandma. Thank you for the teaching that
Yeah.
you have
By the
done.
way,
Yeah.
the country in on the African continent that
Mhm.
I believe is really demonstrating what you just said is the country of Rwanda. Rwanda has a very, very challenging history in terms of the Hutus and the Tutsis.
Yeah.
But today, 50% of the president's cabinet in Rwanda are female. And I believe, even in the countries like Liberia, a few others that have had female prime ministers or female presidents, Rwanda, the president of Rwanda is doing more to empower women than any other country on the continent. And by the way, therefore, Rwanda is one of the fastest growing economies today, despite all of its difficulties in the past on all of Africa. So I've got my eyes on Rwanda. I'm taking a group to Rwanda later on this year to visit with them to understand how women's empowerment is directly related to economic uplift.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, Ghana's disempowerment of women and Nigeria, the Igbos' disempowerment of women came with colonialism.
Right.
So, as you speaking, I was thinking there needs to be a decolonization of how to hold. Said if you educate a man, you educate an individual, but if you educate a woman, you educate
Educate
a
a nation.
nation.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. So back to Ghana. What made you decide that Ghana was a country you were going to visit and
Well,
not Rwanda first?
one Sunday at the end of my Sunday morning service, a gentleman walked up to me and said, "I've really enjoyed being in your church." Uh, and I said, "Thank you." And he said, "But this is my last Sunday with you." I said, "Really? What? Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going home." And I said, "Well, where is home?" He said, "I'm going home to Ghana." And I asked him, "What are you going to do in Ghana?" He said, "I'm going to be a king." And I had no idea that it was as significant a reality as it was. So he went back to Ghana. He assumed a school in Chibi. He wrote me a letter and he said, "Listen, as a member of your church, I watched what you and your church did in the community around your facilities. And I live in a palace in Chibi. And I want to do in my village the kind of work that you did in New Jersey. And I want to invite you to come here and help me do it." So that's what took me to Ghana.
This is beautiful. I love the interconnectedness. I,
Yeah,
I, I love the interconnectedness. I was watching a video that was breaking down that as of this year, there has been about almost 500,000 visitors into Ghana and
yeah,
3.3 billion. And a lot of them are from our brothers and sisters in the diaspora.
yeah. I think Nana Addo did a wonderful thing with the year of return.
Mhm.
It was, I don't know if it was his idea personally, but his administration, in in recognition of the 400th anniversary of the beginning of the slave trade, 1619. In 2019, they did this tremendous
Yes.
effort called the Year of Return.
Hmm.
And that, I believe, not only benefited Ghana, but it benefited the entire continent and people who otherwise would not go to Africa, especially Black Americans, ended up going. And then after the return was beyond the return. And now we see record tourism in Ghana, West Africa, and throughout the continent. It's wonderful.
Yes. And I do believe Nana Addo did his best, but I go back to the original Kwame Nkrumah
Right,
because the independence of Ghana would not have likely been possible if not for the likes of Maya Angelou, Martin Luther King, um, and the African American family that he
right,
found, Marcus Garvey, the conversations that he had with such individuals and inviting them
right.
home.
That's
Yes,
right,
because W.B. Du Bois Center passed on in Ghana. So these are brothers and sisters who were invited to come home, and their additional support transformed the nation we have as Ghana today. It's the same lens I'm looking at, that this year of return and Pan Africanism is changing the narrative of Ghana and the trajectory and who and what Ghana or Ama Ghana, we say Ghana is born on a Saturday and is
right,
female.
right, right.
Ama Ghana is going to be. And I'm happy that Ghana is feminine.
Yeah, but we have to do more than go there and dance and party and drink alcohol. We've got to go and we've got to partner with Ghanaians around business. I am an investor in three businesses in Ghana and part owner in one. And we've got to do more than just go and do the same things there that we do here.
I,
We have to go to Ghana and with a developmental mentality.
I do believe there are certain individuals who went for Ghana for specific purposes, and I watch them and they're doing it.
Good.
There are also Ghanaians who are working tirelessly in Ghana to change the Ghanaian mindset,
Right.
because if we don't meet in the middle, we cannot work together. So there's a certain behavior and attitude that majority of Ghanaians may have, and those mindsets needs to change.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yes,
And
so that we
I'm
can work
I'm very
together.
hopeful, very optimistic. I'm looking forward to building a house in Ghana and spending much more time there than going back and forth.
If you can, don't build, just buy. Unless you're building in Chebi.
Yeah, I'm not gonna build in a crowd. I
Okay.
don't want it's too crowded. I've been crowded all my life living in New Jersey. I want to go out to the country where the air is clean and the grass is green and things are moving slowly.
Okay. Okay. So
Bunso is right now one of my businesses in Bunso, and I like the Bunso area. You know, Koforidia. I
yes.
like that area, the Eastern region.
Okay. 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 I myself am from the eastern region, but I am from Akosombo area.
I see. Okay, I
So
didn't
the
realize.
other side of the mountain.
Yes, ma'am. That's good to know. That's good to
Yes.
know.
So next time we have to start speaking a Equiapim tree.
Well, I need to learn. I've been going back and forth so long. I'm embarrassed to tell you that I can't speak the language. I should know the language by
Yes, you will. You have to eat quite your friend is saying fufu and
now.
abenkwaya.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great, great, great. So, with your Ghanaian experience doing business so far, how has it been going?
My experience in Ghana.
Doing business in Ghana.
Oh, wonderful! Because my business is connected to something related to the Ochahini. So
Okay.
the people that I meet with, the people I work with, I do some outsourcing to a small call center there. It's been wonderful. People that I know, love, and trust. So I
Mhm.
didn't just close my eyes and hope. The Ochahini has introduced me to wonderful people, and those people are my business partners.
Okay, excellent. I am glad it's going on. Um, how do we call it? Excellent for you, and I am excited that you are also going to Rwanda to see the other aspect of Africa. And it's not only West Africa, not
Right.
only Ghana, even though I'm biased towards Ghana and West Africa, but I love all my African family across the diaspora.
Yeah, I
And
do too. I do too. A lot in common, but each nation has its own uniqueness in
yes,
Africa. Although some of the
mhm,
cultures, as you well know better than I, cross those boundaries because
they
those
do.
those boundaries are really European boundaries.
Yes,
The lines were
yes,
not drawn by Africans, and so there are
yes.
a lot of families that go beyond the African territorial boundaries that were carved up in Europe.
Guys, I don't know what to say. Any last thoughts for
Well, listen, yeah,
viewers in
I
Ghana
want
and
to.
here?
Yes, I want to work with you. I want to stay in touch with you. I want to have you come on my podcast later on in the year. And I could talk about Africa all day, every day. And this year, I'll spend more time in Africa, East Africa, South Africa, and West Africa than any one year of my life. So I was just in South Africa. I told you a few weeks ago. I'm
Yes.
taking a group to Tanzania. I'm taking a group on an East African tour: Tanzania, Kenya,
Mhm.
Uganda, and Rwanda.
Yes.
Um, so please, anything you think I should know, I want you to tell me. Anything you want me to do, you should tell me. And I'm honored that you would have me on your prestigious podcast.
And I'm honored you said yes. For somebody who is retired, you are giving so much to us, and I love it. If this is what retirement looks like, then I aim for it.
Well, as I tell my family all the time, I retired from a job, but I didn't retire from my calling.
From yes, okay.
Thank you,
Because
man.
most people say retirement and they retire from life, but this is amazing. This is beautiful.
Thank
Ah,
you so much.
you guys, you've been watching and you've been listening to us on the Nanaya Yabua podcast with Dr. DeSoaries, but as I call him, Nana Berima Abedio.
Right.
Ah,
Splice Originals.